And we are live. Good evening, everyone. I have some exciting news to share with you and some important news to share with you. Russia is now considering selling its oil and gas for Bitcoin. Yes, you heard me correctly. And I've been on this channel for years telling you that it's only a matter of time before the rest of the world starts to look for alternatives to the US dollar. And one of those alternatives will be cryptocurrencies. Now, for you critics out there, I know exactly what you're going to say. Well, this really doesn't make Bitcoin look good because Russia is trying to overthrow another country and they're being sanctioned. So by using Bitcoin for illegal activities actually makes Bitcoin look bad. But see, you're missing some really key ingredients. Russia isn't the only country looking to diversify and get away from the dollar because of the sanctions. Guess who else, right on cue, is looking now to start selling their oil for the Chinese yuan? You heard it correctly. You're looking at it correctly. Saudi Arabia. So for years, the United States has had an unfair advantage by being the world reserve currency. And when we delinked from the gold standard back in 71, we temporarily suspended the window and then we severed the tie in 73, 74. What happened was Saudi Arabia, excuse me, agreed to actually sell its oil and price its oil in US dollars, which forced the rest of the world to have to be able to convert their local currency to the US dollar in order for them to be able to buy oil. So, and the rest of the commodities followed suit, where the US dollar was the unit of account. So, therefore, you had to convert your local currency into US dollars. And the reason why that happened was because, remember, the dollar was pegged to gold. And then after World War II, with the whole Bretton Woods Agreement, the rest of the currencies would float against the US dollar. And 1 ounce of gold was worth 35 US dollars. So once we severed that link, the dollar and US treasuries were as good as gold. But again, like all fiat empires, we abused that privilege and we printed unnecessarily ungodly amounts of currency. And now what's happening is the rest of the world is looking at our national debt, our total public debt, looking at our unfunded liabilities, and they realize there's absolutely no way that we can pay back our debt with tax receipts only. The only way that we're going to be able to pay back this debt is through inflation, devaluing the dollar. So this is why the rest of the world is looking to get away from the US dollar and the petrodollar system, because remember, you only can price your commodities based upon the agreement in US dollars. And the only reason why Saudi Arabia even agreed to this was for protection from the United States. But now you have countries like Russia and China that are looking to lead and power the Great Reset in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So this isn't just happening because of sanctions. And as the world gets more and more unstable, as these fiat currencies become more and more unstable, the rest of the world will be looking for alternatives. Now, another interesting thing happened as well. The fact that the United States went out and confiscated all of Russia's FX reserves that was being held in neighboring banks throughout the world, that showed the rest of the world that the dollar and US treasuries are not neutral assets and they are not as good as gold, because now you have to ask yourself, if you are a country and you may be doing things that you feel is in the best interest of your nation, if you upset Western countries or NATO allies, will they confiscate your FX reserves or your gold reserves that you have sitting in the bank? So this is another reason why cryptocurrencies are going to be extremely important, because now you have a digital asset that you self-custody, and the rest of the world is going to be looking for these type of alternatives. So this is bigger than just JPEGs and NFTs. Crypto is much bigger than just digital money. Like, we're literally talking about the powers that be, not even understanding the amount of counterparty risk that's out there. Think about the Russian oligarchs who had their money sitting in Western banks and they had their money confiscated because of the sanctions. You don't think now they're sitting here looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum and Cardano and all of these other different cryptocurrencies and looking for alternatives? Absolutely, they are. So it's good for those of you who have been following me all of this time, because many of the things that I predicted and said would happen are starting to unfold. And as I always say, I am not a person who I believe the media. I use this as a reference point to bolster my thesis that as we move into a cashless society, as we go through this fourth industrial revolution, as we press deeper into the Great Reset, the rest of the world's looking to get away from the petrodollar and the US dollar. And case in point, the Federal Reserve now owns over 20% of treasuries out here in US debt. Think about that for a second. I just want you to think about that. You have a private bank printing money out of thin air to buy the United States debt, to buy treasuries. The reason why is because the rest of the world realizes I'm not going to loan you any money because you're not going to be able to pay us back. So now what they're doing is they're using the Federal Reserve through quantitative easing to go out here and monetize the debt. And when you have radical politicians in office like Ilhan Omar, like Rashida Tlaib, liberals who believe in modern monetary theory, that you can just print money out of thin air, that, economics doesn't matter, supply and demand doesn't matter, our productivity and our GDP is all that matters, and we can just print as much money as we want to because our debt is denominated in our currency. That hyperinflation is definitely coming, or the opposite has to happen. The Fed has to get extremely aggressive, raise interest rates much higher than 0.25%. We're talking about 5, 7, maybe even 10% to really rein in inflation. And when they do that, they're going to crash the economy. So either way, through inflation or deflation, the dollar will definitely die. So it's exciting times for those of us who have been investing, who have been preparing for this, buying gold, buying silver, buying crypto. And now it's just a matter of sitting back and watching the rest of the world finally wake up to the problem, which is the US dollar. So please do me a favor as you come into this live stream. Please like this video, share this video, subscribe, make sure that you hit the notification bell and you set it to all. Also, I'm doing a $5,000 crypto giveaway. Yes, you heard me correctly. I'm giving away $5,000 worth of cryptocurrency. In order for you to find out more about the details for this giveaway, there is a number in the description below for you to join my text messaging list. You need to text the word YouTube to that number to be on my text messaging list. So therefore now you'll be notified when I'm going live, because sometimes YouTube doesn't send out the live notifications, and any future giveaways that I may be having, you'll be able to be notified via text message. So simply text the word YouTube to the number below and you'll be able to always stay in tune with what I have going on. Also, I am the founder and creator of My Tech Academy, where we cover all things cryptocurrency: how to buy, how to sell, how to store crypto, how to build a portfolio. We dive into how to create NFTs, how to buy, how to sell NFTs, DeFi, liquidity mining, yield farming, you name it. If it's crypto, we got you covered. And we have a free 3-day trial going on right now. So you can sign up free of charge for the first 3 days. And if you like it, you're more than welcome to stick around. With the economic uncertainty that we are facing right now as a country in the world, it is important to be in groups of like-minded individuals and sharing information. Now, for lifetime members, I have a special presentation coming up on April 11th, where I'm going to be teaching you alternative ways of how you can convert your crypto into fiat. Yes, you heard me correctly. I'm going to be teaching you alternative ways. Rather than going through Coinbase or some centralized exchange, I will be teaching you alternatives to go rather than going through Coinbase. And that's only going to be for lifetime members. So if you're not a lifetime member, now is the time to do so. And with that being said, guys, please type 1 if you can see and hear me clearly, and we can get started. There we go. So it says Russia, zoom in a little bit. Russia is now considering selling its oil and gas for Bitcoin as sanctions intensify from the West. Faced with stiffening sanctions from Western countries over its invasion of Ukraine, Russia is considering accepting Bitcoin as payment for its oil and gas exports. In a videotaped news conference held on Thursday, the chair of Russia's Duma committee on energy said in translated remarks that when it comes to friendly countries such as China or Turkey, Russia is willing to be more flexible with payments. Chair Pavel Zavalny said that the national fiat currency of the buyer, as well as Bitcoin, were being considered as alternative ways to pay for Russia's energy exports. We have been proposing to China for a long time to switch to settlements in national currencies for rubles and yuan, Zavalny said in translated comments. With Turkey, it will be lira and rubles. He didn't stop with traditional currencies. You can also trade Bitcoin, he said. That is extremely important because, again, I have been telling you for years, the world has been looking to move away from the dollar because we have abused our privilege. I want you guys to understand that when Nixon took us off of the gold standard, we had a strong manufacturing base. So we would manufacture things and not only consume them domestically, but ship them abroad. But what began to happen is because we could now print currency out of thin air, we exported our inflation to the rest of the world. And what would happen is the rest of the world would then send us their stuff for cheap. So this is how you was able to get a boom, and with companies like Walmart and the discount big box retailers, because again, we were exporting our inflation to the rest of the world. And because they had to hold dollars in order to consume oil, because remember, Saudi Arabia was basically pricing its oil in US dollars. So this created the petrodollar system because, again, you had to hold dollars in order for you to be able to go out here and consume oil and other commodities. So that gave the dollar artificial demand. But the rest of the world started to see that the inflation was killing them, and they started looking for other alternatives to the US dollar. Bitcoin is up close to 4% over the last 24 hours to about $44,000. The price of the cryptocurrency spiked around the time the news report of, I'm just going to say Z, remarks first crossed. The energy chair also doubled down on Vladimir Putin's promise on Wednesday to require unfriendly countries to pay for gas in Russian rubles. Putin's announcement sent European gas prices soaring over worries the move might aggravate an energy market already under pressure. Now, I know what you Bitcoin critics are going to say. Well, this actually isn't good news for Bitcoin. The fact that a country that's going to war has to circumvent the sanctions and use Bitcoin. That actually shows that Bitcoin's only used for illegal things. Right on cue, Saudi Arabia considers accepting the yuan instead of dollars for Chinese oil sales. So here we got two major players in the world, Russia and China, looking to move away from the dollar. And this has been going on for years. Before the sanctions even happened, Russia and China have been looking for alternatives to the US dollar. And right, you have to understand, Saudi Arabia is one of the world's largest oil exporters and the largest oil exporter for the United States in terms of its partner. So the fact that they're looking to move away from the dollar is extremely problematic for the US dollar, because at that point, then now the dollar starts to go into freefall. So Saudi Arabia is in active talks with Beijing to price some of its oil sales to China in yuan. People familiar with the matter said a move that would dent the US dollar's dominance of the global petroleum market and mark another shift by the world's top crude exporter towards Asia. The talks with China over yuan price oil contracts have been off and on for 6 years, but have accelerated this year as the Saudis have grown increasingly unhappy with decades-old U.S. security commitments to defend the kingdom, the people said. The Saudis are angry over the U.S.'s lack of support for their intervention in the Yemen civil war. Now, doesn't this sound a lot like what's happening right now with Russia and the Ukraine? Right? Russia feels like NATO, right, and its allies, right, Western powers, are looking to backdoor them and surround them by going into the Ukraine. So now they're having what you would consider to be a civil war or a local war, because Vladimir Putin wants to be able to defend his border against NATO and its allies. So now look what's happening with Saudi Arabia, and they're having a war with Yemen. You're starting to see these similar things start to happen. And then don't forget about China and Taiwan. So what happens is when you want to be a police officer, that's what the United States wants to be. They want to be a police officer of the world. You cannot fight multiple wars on multiple fronts. And this is another reason why, as a nation, we're going bankrupt, because we want to be in everyone else's business all throughout the world. And most great fiat empires crash and burn the same way. We watched it happen with the Ottoman Empire, the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, and they all crash and burn the same way. Corruption within their government, poor monetary policy, and fighting wars all throughout the world. So it says the Saudis are angry over the U.S.'s lack of support for their intervention in the Yemen civil war and over the Biden administration's attempt to strike a deal with Iran over its nuclear program. Saudi officials have said they were shocked by the precipitous U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan last year. China buys more than 25% of the oil that Saudi Arabia exports. If priced in yuan, those sales would boost the standing of China's currency. The Saudis are also considering including yuan-denominated futures contracts known as the Petrodollar in the pricing model of Saudi Arabian oil company known as Aramco. It would be profound. It would be a profound shift for Saudi Arabia to price even some of its roughly 6.2 million barrels a day of crude exports in anything other than dollars. The majority of global oil sales, around 80%, are done in dollars. The Saudis have traded oil exclusively in dollars since 1974 in a deal with the Nixon administration that included security guarantees for the kingdom. Now, let's go into what actually happened with Nixon, and let's just actually hear it out of his mouth himself. So let's go right here. And this was about 50 years ago when this happened. This is very, very important.
And building the new prosperity is closely related to creating new jobs and halting inflation. We must protect the position of the American dollar as a pillar of monetary stability around the world. In the past 7 years, there's been an average of one international monetary crisis every year. Now, who gains from these crises? Not the working man, not the investor, not the real producers of wealth. The gainers are the international money speculators. Because they thrive on crises, they help to create them. In recent weeks, the speculators have been waging an all-out war on the American dollar. The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States. Now, what is this action, which is very technical, what does it mean for you? Let me lay to rest the bugaboo of what is called devaluation. If you want to buy a foreign car or take a trip abroad, market conditions may cause your dollar to buy slightly less. But if you are among the overwhelming majority of Americans who buy American-made products in America, your dollar will be worth just as much tomorrow as it is today. The effect of this action...
Now, we know for a fact that that's a lie. And we know that politicians do nothing but lie, because we can just simply look at this and we can look at the purchasing power of a dollar, and we can see right here in 1971, right, what a dollar could buy. And when Nixon suspended the gold window and the end of the Bretton Woods Agreement, we can see that the dollar continued to fall and lose its purchasing power as usual, right? And we can look up here and we can see inflation after 71, every single year after 71, we've averaged inflation, right? To the point where now, literally when I was a kid, I can go into the store with $1 and I would feel rich. I could buy so many different, juices and candy and ices. Cannot do that now with $1, right? Because it's not that the money's any different. It's the purchasing power of the money. Now, again, when we removed ourselves from the gold standard and we temporarily closed this window and then completely severed the link in 73, we had to tie the dollar to another system. And this created what is known as the petrodollar, as I spoke about earlier. What would happen now is that commodities were priced in US dollars, particularly oil. And the Saudis were willing to do this in order for the United States to turn a blind eye to them being dictators and the brutality that they, inflict on their people on a daily basis, and also for the protection from the United States. And that agreement worked for about 40 years, but now it's not working anymore. And now, as I said earlier, when you understand that we export our inflation away, and this is why we didn't really feel a lot of the inflation until recently, when the rest of the world started looking to diversify out of the US dollar and they stopped buying treasuries, because now you have the Federal Reserve basically monetizing our debt. See, normally what would happen in a free market is investors would come into the market and that they would buy your debt because they felt comfortable holding your debt, and you would pay them a 2% interest rate or 3% interest rate, depending on the maturity of that debt. But when inflation's raging at 7% based upon the CPI, and we know that inflation's much higher, countries are saying, why would I hold your debt and get 3% or 2% when the inflation rate's at 7%? I'm losing money by holding your debt. So this is why the Fed now is stepping in and having to monetize and buy up much of this debt, which is leading to the inflation that we are starting to see. And thanks for the donation. What's up, man? Ape is looking good. Also, thoughts on KDA? Can we test this all the time? I've never looked at Kadena or Kadana, however you say the name, but I'm definitely deeply invested in the Ape coin. I got in around like $4-ish. I started layering in. I like the project. I believe that they picked a poor name, which puts them in the same conversation as many of these meme coins, but they're definitely much better than any of these meme coins. There's actual real world utility built into the NFT, the DAO. They have a play to earn game coming out. They're going to have metaverse real estate tied to the Bored Apes. Like, there's so much utility built in that. And then the type of investors that's involved with the actual Bored Ape community, when you look at Andreessen Horowitz and that entire firm and what they're doing, those are not small time players in the crypto space. So I'm definitely invested in the project. I'll be looking to take a little bit of profit once we get to $20, and then I'll let the rest go and do what it has to do. But remember, if Dogecoin can hit $60 billion, there's no reason why ApeCoin can't get to 30 billion. And then you're looking at a 10x on your money. And that's why I stand with that. But back to the presentation. Thanks for the donation. Now, right on cue, right? Because we're talking about how the world's in a dilemma and the rest of the world is moving away from a lot of the Western powers, and the West is losing its control. It says, as oil nears $100, the Saudis snubbed U.S. stick to Russian pact amid the Ukraine crisis. So, rising oil prices and fears of a Russian invasion of Ukraine have created a dilemma for Saudi Arabia. Help the West by pumping more crude to tame the market, right? Or stand by a 5-year-old oil alliance that is helping Moscow at the expense of Washington, right? So it says, for now, the world's largest crude exporter is sticking with Russia, because what could happen right now is when you see the price of oil spike like that, the Saudis can just simply drill and pull more oil out the ground. And that would basically, if you add more supply to the marketplace, bring oil prices down if they wanted to work with the United States. But what's happening is, because the world sees the West as being weak, because the world sees Russia and China as being a future power and a conglomerate, they're saying, we want to pick the winner of the future. And I've been saying this for you to you for the longest. Russia and China will rule the fourth industrial revolution. Make no mistake about it. That will happen. And this is why cryptocurrencies will be important, because they are an alternative system to what's happening with the dollar and any fiat currency, might I add. And it's not just Bitcoin, because remember, Bitcoin does not have enough liquidity. So you have to start looking at other cryptocurrencies as well to be able to trade in, because you're talking about 20, 30, 40, $50 billion per day of commerce going on, or business going on in regards to some of these countries, in regards to what they're doing with oil. So you're going to need more liquidity than what Bitcoin can provide. And this is where, things like Ripple comes into play, although I'm not a fan of Ripple, but Ethereum, etc. So be mindful of these things, that this is much bigger than digital money and NFTs and JPEGs. Like, we're talking about the future of the world here. Now, again, because I know what some of you are saying, oh, well, that's just, one article. Look at this right here. Russia and China agree to a 30-year gas deal via a new pipeline to settle in euros. Again, what's happening here? Moving away from the US dollar. And you're going to see this theme happening time and time again, right here. And I'm surprised that CNBC and Bloomberg and many of these other news outlets are not covering this. But see, it's a reason why they're not covering this, because here in America, we don't get news. We get fed propaganda. We get fed a liberal agenda or a conservative agenda. We don't get unbiased information and news for us to consume and form our own opinions or views. So it says Russia has agreed to a 30-year contract to supply gas to China via a new pipeline and will settle the new gas sales in euros, bolstering an energy alliance with Beijing amid Moscow's strained ties with the West over Ukraine and other issues. I'm just going to say gas, which has a monopoly on Russian gas exports by pipeline, agreed to supply Chinese state energy major CNPC with 10 billion cubic meters of gas a year, the Russian firm and Beijing-based industry official said. It's happening, right? We're not talking about something that potentially may happen. We're talking about these are deals that are being inked and penned right now and are actually starting to happen. The world is moving away from the dollar. And the reason why the world is moving away from the dollar is, this is one reason right here. Look at this national debt. There's no way that we're going to be able to pay back this debt with tax receipts alone. And then, like I said earlier, when you have radical politicians like Ilhan Omar, and the Cortez lady, and so many Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, where they want everything to be free housing, free tuition, free, free food, free healthcare. Nothing in this world is free. Nothing in this world is free. You will pay via inflation. So now, as we get more radical and we go down this path of populism, and people feel like they have been unfairly wronged and unfairly treated, and the rich got bailed out, which these things are true, people are going to want their free stuff too. And now when you start looking at this, look at the interest on our debt. Just the interest alone. This is one of our largest expenditures for the government. We're talking about $400 billion. $400+ billion of interest that we have to pay on our debt. Now, again, as I said before, if the Fed aggressively raises interest rates, what do you think is going to happen to the interest on our debt? It's going to increase. It's going to become more expensive. Because do you think the politicians are going to spend less money, or you think they're going to spend more money? Because the easy thing to do is to promise people free stuff. That's how you get elected. And then when you come down here and you look at Social Security and Medicare liability and our unfunded liabilities, the rest of the world realizes you're not paying that back with tax receipts. You're going to have to pay that back with inflation, which is why other countries are not stepping in and aggressively buying up our debt. And this right here, this pie chart is beautiful, where it shows that, right, to whom does the United States government owe money? Right here. And right here, number 2 on the list is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is the second largest holder and buyer of our debt. Think about that for a second, right? U.S. individuals and institutions are number one, and then number two is the Federal Reserve. Because no one else is really stupid enough to lend us money because they know that we're irresponsible and we're not going to pay it back. So you have to really start wrapping your mind around why alternative assets such as gold is important, such as cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin are important, because you need to make sure that you are diversifying away from all fiat currencies, might I add. Now, this is interesting right here. It says another reason why the rest of the world is looking to move away from the dollar is because of the fact that they realize your assets can be confiscated. If you have money sitting in a bank, you don't own that money. You are renting that money. And at any moment, if the government wants to seize or confiscate your money, they can do so. And that's what happened with Putin when he decided to invade the Ukraine. Now, you don't think the rest of the world is looking at that? Whether you would think that what Putin is doing is right or wrong, that's not the question or what we're debating right here, right now. Follow me. The dollar is supposed to be a neutral asset because it's supposed to be as good as gold. Treasuries are supposed to be pristine collateral. When you can be politically influenced to do things and confiscate people's wealth, you don't think that people are looking at that in China and Iran and also in other parts of the world and saying that could happen to me as well? So people are definitely looking to get away from the dollar. And I'm going to keep saying that, get away from the dollar. Now, this is one of the problems with gold. I know a lot of you want to, you don't like Bitcoin, you like gold. Well, the US G7 freezes Russian gold amid the Ukraine war. All you need to know. The problem with gold will always be you need someone else to hold it. You will always need a bank or some type of a custodian to hold the gold. So therefore, it makes it very easy for it to be confiscated. This is why by having your money be mobile and having your money be digital, you can go anywhere in the world. And if you remember your private key, your seed phrase, that's your private key, you can access your cryptocurrency wallet. That is extremely important because now in the event that you're in the Ukraine and you need to flee, well, if your money's tied up in their banking system, we don't know what their banking system is going to look like once Russia finally gets control of it. Well, if my assets are outside of the financial system, outside of the control of any institution, well, then now I just simply remember my seed phrase, go anywhere in the world, and I can back up my cryptocurrency. And then once you learn alternative ways of converting your crypto into fiat rather than going through Coinbase, then you become really, really powerful. And like I said earlier, I have a presentation for lifetime members only coming up where I will be teaching you guys how you can convert your crypto into other assets or fiat without having to go through a centralized exchange. And this is going to be nothing illegal. I'm not going to be teaching you any dark web tricks, just teaching you other alternatives to converting your crypto to fiat. And it will only be for lifetime members. So if you're interested in that, a link to become a member inside of my Tech Academy is in the description below. Also, I'm doing a $5,000 crypto giveaway. Yes, you heard me correctly. I am giving away $5,000 worth of crypto. In order for you to learn more about this, you need to be on my text messaging list. Text the word YouTube to the number below in my description as well. Now, another interesting thing happened right here. Again, the West is just literally burying themselves quicker than I even expected. Select Russian banks are being booted off of the SWIFT bank messaging system. Now, this is very, very important because this is how you basically send money all through around the world. This is how banks communicate with each other. It's a messaging system. Follow me here. This is important. The US dollar has a network effect, meaning that you're pricing your commodities in the US dollar. People are then holding and hoarding those dollars so that they can buy the commodities that they need because they have to convert their local currency into dollars. And then they were also buying treasuries. When you start kicking people out of that particular network, well, then the network effect becomes weaker because now people start looking for alternatives. And this is where now Bitcoin comes into play. This is where gold comes into play. This is where even commodity-based currencies come into play, because now people are saying to themselves, I don't trust this system because this system is being politically driven and politically motivated. So people are going to start looking for alternatives. And when you start looking at the Russian people that are being hurt by these sanctions, remember, it's not just the government of Russia that's being hurt with these sanctions. It's also just the citizens. You think that they're going to just sit there and be crippled in terms of their finances? No, they're going to start looking for alternatives as well. And this is why crypto is going to become stronger, because they're going to start adopting things like XRP and the XRP ledger, or things like Bitcoin and the Lightning Network, and all of these other alternatives, because people are going to be looking for things outside of the government's reach where they cannot be penalized because the government is not doing the right thing. So these things are going to continue to keep escalating and ratcheting up as we go forward. And it's just, again, it's exciting to see, but it's also scary because, like I said before, it's the best of time and it's the worst of times. Meaning that for those of us who are prepared, we are going to get filthy rich. We're going to build so much wealth, it's going to be insane. But for many of you who are dumb, quite frankly, like really, who are holding a bunch of fiat currencies, who do not hold hard assets like gold and silver and crypto, you're going to get destroyed. Either your wealth is going to be confiscated by your government through some type of a bail-in, right? Or it's going to be confiscated through inflation. But one way or another, you won't own your assets. You will own nothing, and you will love it. And right here, like I said earlier, it says the U.S. escalates sanctions with a freeze on Russian central banks. Again, freezing their assets. So again, they're going to start looking for alternatives like the rest of the world. Now, also, when we look at this petrodollar system, if you go back and you look at people like Muammar Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein, they wanted to get away from the US dollar as well. If you go back and you do your due diligence and your research, Gaddafi was looking to start selling his oil for gold. And what did the United States do? Well, they went and invaded Libya, right? And they went and killed him. And then Saddam Hussein was talking about, having some type of a euro-backed, currency, as well as some other currencies, and selling their oil as well. And guess what happened? They went out and killed him. The problem is that they can't do that to Russia and China. And I think that you have to be mindful of these things, because these things don't just happen in a vacuum, right? There are certain domino pieces that are falling. And if you're not paying attention and understanding what's going on, and if you don't really understand the dollar system and the petrodollar system, then you don't even understand why we need cryptocurrencies and alternatives to government-backed currency in the first place. And that goes back to, if you're a member of My Tech Academy, the very, very first course that you're introduced to is the Bitcoin course. And I talk to you about why Bitcoin is so important. And so many people look at it like, oh, it's just a, digital piece of money that's, destroying the environment that a bunch of nerds are backing. No, Bitcoin is permissionless, it is borderless, and it is censorship resistant. It is the first type of money that you can honestly say could potentially be neutral. And when you start understanding that, that's very, very important, meaning that no one entity or one nation controls the ledger in regards to your participation within the network, right? They can't block you. As long as you have internet access, you can participate in the network. You don't have to worry about whether or not these 13 men who are meeting in a room that you didn't even elect want to raise interest rates or drop interest rates, whether they want to, cause inflation or rein in inflation. Literally, you actually have an economy and a protocol that you know the rules to before you engage. That is very, very important and very, very key going forward, that you know the rules and that you don't have to worry about waking up in the morning and they change the rules to the game like they do all the time here. Now, last thing that I want to leave you guys with right here before I take some questions. It says Saudi Arabia invites China's Xi to visit the kingdom amid a strained U.S. relations. It says Saudi Arabia has invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to visit, I don't even know how to say this word, I'm just going to say Riyadh, as the kingdom looks to deepen ties with Beijing amid strained relations with Washington. People familiar with the plan said the trip is expected to happen after Islam's holy month of Ramadan, which begins in early April this year. The people said, in what could be Mr. Xi's first foreign travel since the COVID pandemic began. Raida is planning to replicate the warm reception it gave to former President Donald Trump in 2017 when he visited the kingdom on his first trip abroad, one of the people said. The Crown Prince and Xi are close friends and both understand that there is huge potential for stronger ties, said Saudi official. It is not just they buy oil from us and we buy weapons from them. The Saudi Foreign Ministry and the Chinese embassy in Riyadh didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. The trip comes amid shifting geopolitics in the Middle East. The U.S. looks to focus more attention and resources on Asia, while China and Russia expand their influence in the region. Again, it's happening all around you. It's really just a matter of whether or not you are paying attention to what's going on. This is why I was able to predict what Bitcoin was going to do, what Ethereum was going to do years ago, because I understand money. This is why I recommend all of my students read the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, Murray Rothbard, What Government Has Done to Money. Read books like 1984, A Brave New World, because if you can understand history, it doesn't repeat itself, but it damn sure rhymes. And every great fiat empire ends up crashing and burning just the way that the United States is doing right now with corrupt politicians. Just look at Nancy Pelosi and her trades. Nancy Pelosi either has insider information or she is the greatest investor of all time, even better than most computer algorithms, right? Now, which one do you think, right? That she just so-called happens to be able to buy her stocks at the right time and sell them at the right time. And every time she seems to buy them, it's always right around some major news event that the government supposedly is influencing or has some influence on, right? Supposedly. So it's very, very obvious that there's corruption in Washington. And then we're seeing a breakdown in morality in our society. And this is all along the lines of the Great Reset. We see that the American dream is becoming further out of reach for the average citizen every day. People are getting destroyed with inflation. People have had their jobs taken away from them. You're losing your freedom to your bank accounts. You're losing freedom to your body in regards to forcing you to have to get a jab. All of these things are a part of the Great Reset. Problem, reaction, solution. Create the problems, wait for you to react, and offer a solution. At a certain point, you have to start dictating what happens and not having people dictate to you what happens. Cryptocurrency actually gives you that ability. And it's sad that many of you are still sitting on the sidelines after all of these things are happening. And I don't know what it's going to take to wake up many of you. Well, I do know what it's going to take. It's actually going to take a boot on your neck. And, that's the sad point, because once they're at your door coming to get you in the middle of the night, at that point, it's too late. So let's get to some questions. I see a few donations came through. What's the worst case scenario if the U.S. is no longer the world reserve currency? Will we have to buy whatever the reserve currency is? Well, the worst case scenario is massive amounts of inflation, right? So the worst case scenario is that now, remember, if you don't have the world reserve currency, then what does that do to your military power, right? Because how are you going to finance your military? If you're having massive amounts of inflation and you're having supply shortages, well, then what does that do to the morale of your citizens? Now you have people in the middle of the street. You have a large amount of homelessness, which we're already starting to see the impacts of losing the world reserve currency status. Just go to any major city. Go into New York City. Go into parts of California. Go look at the homelessness that's happening, right? Go look at the amount of people on food stamps that can't afford to feed themselves. So losing the world reserve currency status, that's just going to further put more pressure on all of those things that's happening right here, right now. So expect your groceries to be even more expensive. Expect shortages. Expect long lines. You don't really want to live through a currency crisis. Just go and look what happened with Zimbabwe and hyperinflation, right? Go and look what happened with the people of Venezuela, where they're carrying around wheelbarrows of their currency and money. So losing that would be extremely, extremely problematic because remember, we don't export anything in this country, really. We run a large trade deficit, meaning that the only thing we really export is green pieces of paper. We export our inflation, which is why we have a trade deficit, to buy other countries' things and stuff. And, Peter Schiff used to always say this, and this is one thing I agree with him on, although I disagree with 90% of the things that Peter Schiff says, is that as the rest of the world goes from a third world country to a second world power or a second world power to a first world power, you don't think that those Chinese people that are working in those factories and making the washing machines and dryers and dishwashers for you, you don't think that they're not sitting there saying, hey, I would like to have these things as well? So as China wants to raise the standard of living of their people, part of that is getting the world to adopt and accept their currency and hardening their assets. And now the people are going to start consuming their own goods, which is going to be a problem here because if we're not producing enough stuff here, if we have a wild, a lot of volatility in our currency, that's going to be extremely problematic here. Faux OG says, let me bring this down here. He says, thanks for dropping gems and providing a perspective based solely on facts and not emotions. Please check your MyTech Academy email. Definitely will do so, Flo OG. And that's what I try to do my best, right? I have a thesis, right? Like part of it, like in when you're doing work in academia, right? You have to cite your sources. So I don't sit here and just read the news to you. I predict what's going to happen. And then as it's happening, I use this as a reference. A lot of people can tell you the news as it's happening, but very few people can actually be a visionary as to what's to come. Now, again, I don't always get it right. I would say that I'm probably about 75, maybe 85% accurate most of the time. But in terms of the macro, I feel like I do a really, really good job in regards to just tying the macro together. I've been doing this now, for 13 years. I mean, if you even read Elijah Muhammad's book, The Fall of America, these things have been prophesized for years in regards to, the worst thing that we ever did was remove ourselves from the gold standard, and then, you have these crazy people who float these ideas around like modern monetary theory, MMT, where the idea that because our debt is denominated in our currency, that somehow we can just print as much money as we want to because that will make us more productive. But what they don't understand is like metrics like GDP can be manipulated. So like I can manipulate the gross domestic product to make our country seem like it's more productive than it really is. At the end of the day, you cannot manipulate nature. There's only a certain amount of livable land, drinkable water, gold in the ground, right? Steel, aluminum, copper, zinc, right? So when you can just print little pieces of paper at will, then you can make any metric look like it's great. But the reality is that we live in a finite world, right? We don't live in an infinite world. And don't worry about me. I'm going to disappear in a second. That's just because my camera that I'm using right now, it always does this. It overheats after a certain point. So I'll turn it back on in like 5 minutes. I have a new Sony A7 that I'm using for streaming now. I don't just use a webcam. So after 40 minutes, it's been doing this recently. So don't worry about it. I'm still here. But yeah, so, floating that idea around, what do you think the rest of the world's doing when you see your politicians, endorsing and embracing the idea that they can print as much money as they want to? The rest of the world gets scared and realizes that's a problem. So, that's why I try to do the best that I can do to give you guys accurate information. Do you still think BTC will drop to 30K, ETH will see 1700, or is it possible beginning of a new bull run? It's very possible that we're seeing a new bull run, but I still think that we have to test that area. The reason why I feel that way is because there's just so much uncertainty going on right now. And just in all my years of watching the market, markets never they never really just hit a level after extreme selling like that and never try to retest that level again. Now, could it happen? Absolutely. Anything's possible in the market. So I haven't added any fresh money into any positions that I currently hold. Have I purchased new cryptocurrencies? Yes, but I have not added to any old positions that I hold. So I invested in the Ape coin. I'm doing really, really well. I shared some other plays for my students inside of the group. But in terms of like ETH or like Phantom or any other projects I'm into, Polkadot, I have not purchased anymore because I just believe that we have to go down there and test a little bit lower. But again, that's not financial advice. If you're not already in the marketplace, you can, again, buy on red, the next red day that we have. If you want to start averaging into a position, feel free to do so. But for me, remember, I'm in from such low prices that I don't have to get back into the market. Like I have a lot of crypto and I believe that we're going to go much higher. Like overall, let's pull up the let's pull up Coin Market Cap, right? And let's just look at this. Like overall, the entire cryptocurrency market cap is over $2 trillion. Like that's a joke. We have so much more room to run to the upside. I'm talking about 10, 15, $20 trillion market cap overall for all cryptocurrencies combined. So I don't really need to, I'm in a privileged position that I've been in for years prior to today. So I don't really need to chase these, moves up or these moves down. I just take profit on certain positions like the Ape coin. Once we break $20, I'll definitely start selling some. I'll sell about half and let the rest go. That's just smart investing. But again, pick your spots. Know what you own and why you own it, and know how you're going to execute your plan. You should not be basing your plan off of what I'm doing because I'm in from such low prices. Like I'm in Bitcoin from sub $3,000, sub $1,000. I'm in Ethereum from $40, right? So my tolerance to hold these things through these corrections are much different than yours is because you're getting it at a higher price. So just be mindful of these things, right? Like I don't have to dollar cost average or average in to positions because I already own a shit ton of crypto from such low prices. And then I've already, I've knocked it out of the park with things like Matic. I knocked it out of the park with things like VeChain. I knocked it out of the park with something like, what's the name? Solana. And I'm about to knock it out of the park with Luna. Right. So, having those huge wins like that puts me in a position where I don't really have to start doing that. Did you change your mind about XRP? You said before XRP is garbage. XRP is hell. Now you consider XRP price will join the sun. That's just common sense. Crypto Boise, like everything's going to pump. That's like sitting up here saying, well, because Dogecoin pumped that. Just because Dogecoin reached a $60 billion market cap, does that mean that it's a real cryptocurrency? Does it mean that it has utility? No, it just means that it pumped. So, yeah, Ripple will pump. Doesn't mean that it's not shit. Shiba Inu pumped. FOMO 3D pumped. BitConnect pumped. See, many of you believe just because something goes up in price that it's valuable. And that's the problem. This is why so many of you get scammed. This is why so many of you lose money because you buy things based upon a perception of the FOMO. So you're watching something go up and you're saying, oh my God, this thing is going up. When you should be trading that garbage and getting in and getting out. Ripple is shit. And I will stand by what I said about Ripple. I have not seen anything that Ripple has been doing to make me change my tune. Now, can you make money with Ripple? Absolutely. Will Ripple pump the day that they settle with the SEC? Absolutely. So what would a smart person do? If I'm holding Ripple, I'm going to make some money and I'm going to dump that shit. That's what a smart person would do. A dummy would hold it thinking it's going to go to $100. Just from the metrics and looking at the tokenomics, you would know that it's not going to hit $100, right? So just be mindful and be smart of what you're doing. Get in, get out, know what you own and why you own it. Know at what price something is overvalued and at what price something is undervalued. That's just being a good speculator. XRP is shit. XRP is a security. Candace says, yes, I texted the number. Kendu Forest, I'm glad you said that. Do you understand? See, this is one of the problems, right? Just because I own ApeCoin does not mean that I think that ApeCoin is better than XRP. Just because I own ApeCoin doesn't mean that I think ApeCoin is better than Ethereum. There is something known as layers. And we have a presentation in the academy called Know Your Layers. When you know your layers, you understand that you have a layer 1, you have a layer 2, you have a layer 3, right? You have different layers that serve different purposes. So when I'm allocating my capital based upon the layer that I'm investing in and the investment opportunity. So if I have something like ApeCoin come across my and catches my attention, I may only put 3% of my capital into it, 4% of my capital into it. Whereas something like Ethereum or something like Chainlink, I might put 20 or 25 of my capital into it. It's called building a portfolio. So what you do is there are some assets you trade, and then there are some assets that you buy and you hold. Like, for example, my Ethereum, I don't plan on selling it. I plan on staking it and earning passive income, right? So just because I own one or the other doesn't mean that one is better than the other. One is an NFT project based around a DAO, right? And then the other one is a layer 1 that tokens are built on top of. Do you see the difference? I hope you do. That's a great question, Crypto Joe. Do you think the U.S. will start another Gaddafi or Hassan type of invasion since those countries are moving from the USD? They can't do it. See, that's the problem. They can't bully Russia and China the way that they bullied, Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein. See, and this becomes very, very important because now we have to start getting into the whole idea of the Great Reset, right? And technology and warfare. As I said to you before, we're not going to have another world war, right? The wars of the 21st century will not be fought with tanks. Like local skirmishes will be fought with tanks and things of that nature. But I'm talking about world war. That's not going to happen. It's going to be fought with technology and biowarfare and financial terrorism, things like that. So, when we start getting into the idea of like the Great Reset and technology and shows like Westworld, China is so far ahead of the world in regards to technology and what they're looking to do. It's scary. It's frightening what they're trying to do in terms of androids, lifelike androids and, humanoids. All of these things start coming into play. And I would encourage a lot of you to go watch the show Westworld just to kind of get an idea as to, some of the technology and things that's coming down the pipeline. The idea of a central bank digital currency, all of these different things that, the United States is just now talking about. China's been rolling that type of stuff out, in regards to WeChat and Alipay and, so many different things. So, really go out here and start educating yourself on what this whole idea of transhumanism is and the Great Reset and what that really means for you. And how you should be thinking about it. It's about merging man with machine. It's about bringing technology into your everyday lives. It's about, really having control, like the Matrix. Absolutely, Jeep man. That's the best way to do it is that by basically your private keys are on this device. And you're signing up. So when you do a transaction through MetaMask, you have to make sure that your ledger is connected in order to do that. So that takes your MetaMask wallet from being a hot wallet to now being more of a cold storage type thing, because basically you're using your ledger device to sign the transaction as you broadcast it out to the network. So the only way that you should be using MetaMask is by attaching it to your ledger. That's just the smartest way. That just gives you an extra layer of security. And I did a Instagram story about that yesterday, where I was saying to you guys that it's amazing to me when I watch people think that they're flexing by showing you how much money they have sitting on Coinbase, or they think they're flexing by showing you their NFTs. That's actually dumb, because remember, the whole purpose of crypto is to be pseudo anonymous or to give you anonymity. The minute that you link your identity to the wallet, I can now see every single thing that wallet is doing. I can see all of the crypto that you hold. So now, if I can link you to the wallet, then I can link you to your Instagram profile. Then I can find out, most likely, because if you're dumb enough to share your wallet and your NFTs with the world, Well, then now you're probably dumb enough to be using the same email address from Instagram on Coinbase. So what hackers do is they can start to social engineer and attack you because they know, okay, well, Elijah has this Instagram called Common Sense Eli, and I encourage you guys to come follow my new Instagram. Now I know your Instagram page. I know your email address. Now let me send you an email that looks like it's from OpenSea or an email that looks like it's from Coinbase. And then your dumbass, you click it, boom. And the next thing you know now, you're hacked and you lose all your crypto. Or they can create a website that looks like a normal site that you connect your MetaMask to, right? You give permission to. And the next thing you know, they say, come claim this free airdrop with your Bored Ape. And we watch it happen all the time. And because you're dumb, because you think you're flexing, because you're making, I'm not saying you're dumb, Jeep. I'm saying dummies do this. They think they're flexing like, yeah, look at my Bored Ape. Look how much money my Bored Ape is worth. And then the hacker takes your Bored Ape and you end up looking stupid, right? You should have multiple wallets for different things. You should have a wallet for everyday use that you're going to be trading in and out of and doing things. And then you should have a separate wallet that's going to be your buy and hold wallet that you're storing your wealth in, right? But I see people, they have one wallet and they have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 worth of crypto in that wallet, right? And then they're on Instagram flexing like, look at me, right? I know what I'm doing. No, you just happen to get lucky and be in a bull market. Like a lot of these people that you think are, a lot of these platforms are shifting the culture, right? And they're bringing back Black Wall Street. Many of these people are stupid. They just happen to be lucky by being in the right place at the right time, and the Fed printed trillions of dollars. Many of these people didn't have any foresight. They don't have any real insight into what's going on, right? They're just happening to be in the right place at the right time. And what happens is many of you follow these people thinking that they're some type of a guru, right? But in reality, nope, they just got lucky. But what's going to happen is, it's sad. Many of them got lucky and made a lot of money in crypto, and they're going to get hacked and lose it all. Be smart with your crypto. Get a hardware wallet. Have multiple wallets, right? Don't leave your seed phrase in a note on your computer. Be smart. Use your brain, right? Don't have millions of dollars worth of crypto on your mobile phone. That's not smart, right? You go to the bar one night, you get drunk, you walk past a person who can get into your phone, and you lose all your crypto. That's not smart. Now, I'm glad you said that, voice of crypto. There's nothing wrong with showing your ape if you want to show your ape, right? Have your ape in that wallet. Don't have the rest of your crypto in the same wallet that you bought the ape with or you minted the ape. That's all. Okay. Have your ape in that particular wallet and then your everyday crypto in that wallet, but your net worth, right? Your 100,000 or 50,000 of Ethereum should not be in the same wallet that's linked to the ape, right? That's not smart. That's not smart. That's not smart at all. Oh, as Frenchie, people really show their Coinbase balances? Absolutely. And they think that they're flexing on the culture, right? Like one guy told me, show your net worth. Only a dumbass will show you the net worth, because here's another thing that a lot of you don't think about. If I can see your crypto wallet and I know that it's your wallet, what's stopping someone from catching you in the alley late at night somewhere and kidnapping you and taking you somewhere and beating you until you give them your private key? See, you got to think about these things, right? Because now you are your own bank. Remember, we're dealing with a public open ledger. Everything on the blockchain, unless you're using a privacy coin like Monero, can be tracked, traced, and monitored. So when you're out here flexing, telling the world, I have all of this crypto, as the world goes deeper and deeper into chaos, as the Great Reset comes in deeper and deeper, I promise you, it's only going to get darker. The things that these people have planned for you, you have no idea how big these devils are. So the people are going to be hungry. Newsflash, you're a plate. They're looking to eat. Be mindful. Please be smart. Please be smart with your crypto. Please be careful with who you're talking to and what you're showing on crypto. be mindful of it. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing when you show a person like, yeah, he has crypto. When I say that, meaning that you can have multiple private keys on this device, right? Like literally, you can have multiple whole setups. So you can have one private key that links to your, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and let's say your Ripple account, and you can have a whole nother separate wallet with a whole separate set of the 12 words or 16 words or 24 words, and do the same thing again. How you want to do it depends on you, right? But you can generate as many private keys as you want on this device right here. You just need to be smart, right? Now, obviously, there are storage limitations to how much you can store in here, but again, you should be fine with the amount of crypto that you're storing. But just be mindful of that. What are my thoughts on AVAX? I think Avalanche is a great protocol. I think Avalanche is going to do really, really well. I think that Avalanche, I wouldn't say that it's a competitor to Ethereum, but I would definitely say that it's going to be right there if Ethereum 2.0 cannot do what it needs to do. I think Avalanche is solid. I think Cosmos is solid. I think that Near Protocol is another solid layer 1 competitor. I think that all of those are. Solana is absolute shit, which is why I sold most of it. It's really just the only reason why it's fast is it's built on a bunch of Web 2 technology across the board. Like, now you can make the same, critique against Ethereum with Infura, but that's just one point. You can do that with so many different points on Solana. So, and Luna is just a Ponzi scheme, right? So I'm looking to take profit soon on the Luna that I own. I think that the Luna Ponzi scheme can go on for a very, very long time because the guys are really, really, really smart. But at the end of the day, it's a Ponzi scheme. The whole UST component and all that's a Ponzi scheme. All right. Let's see what else you guys got going on here. Did I answer all of the donations? Want to make sure I got you guys first. Yeah, definitely did. That's a great. I didn't know that about that zigzag. Definitely. Follow me on my new Instagram page in the description below and shoot me a DM about that story. I did not know about the Chinese troops on American soil. Didn't know anything about that. It's interesting. The Age of Ultron. Oh, I love that. That's the beautiful thing about Marvel is that, and movies in general, is they share a lot of things that's to come. Like even the whole idea of like string theory and the multiverse, and like that you exist in other dimensions, that there's multiple of you. These are real fascinating topics that are rooted in science as well. And these are things that China is playing around with, in Russia. So definitely interesting times that we're living in. Like the whole and like Marvel, they did a good job with the concept of Ultron, but they like Ultron is much stronger than what they made him in the movie. You know what? That's a great question, Drika, about Moon River. I got burned in Moon River because so the way that Polkadot is set up is that they have Kusama, right? And Kusama is like a live test network, a canary network with actual money on the line, right? So like one of the best ways to test how secure your protocol is to actually have real money on the line. And that's what Polkadot basically is doing, where basically, they launch the test version of it on the canary network, which is Kusama, that was Moon River. And then if it was successful, then they launch Moonbeam on the Polkadot network. I kind of got into Moon River a little early, so I'm down in Moon River, but I'm up in the Moonbeam because I picked my right price to start buying Moonbeam. With in regards to Moon River, we really just have to take a wait and see approach with Kusama to really see if the projects that are launched on Kusama actually are going to thrive and people are going to start using it, or is it really just a test network and it pumps and then everything dumps? We have to wait and see. I do think that Moon River is going to be important in regards to getting liquidity into the Polkadot ecosystem from Ethereum, being able to bridge over to Ethereum and interact with Ethereum protocols is going to be important. So Moonbeam, I told you guys earlier that Moonbeam was going to be a big project, and I still think it will be. But Moon River is going to be interesting. I honestly don't know, because we have to wait and see in regards to, will everything pump initially on Kusama and dump because people are just looking at it as a test network? We have to wait and see. Do you talk about farming? Absolutely. In our DeFi course, I dive deep. I have a whole course on teaching you how to bridge your assets, how to liquidity provide, yield farming, you name it, we cover it. Staking, you got it. All there. And I go into deep details and showing you how to bridge your assets over from different networks, using aggregators, just different things, compounding your interests, etc. I wouldn't say that Luna's a pump and dump, right? Because it didn't just pump and dump. I would just simply say that it has Ponzi economics, right? One thing about crypto that you have to understand with these Ponzi-like things is that they can last much longer than you and I ever imagined they could. Like, look at BitConnect. That thing went on for what, 2 years, 3 years? So although Luna may be a Ponzi, it may have like Ponzi-like economics. Because remember, these are all incentive-based networks, right? They're socially enforced networks. So you have to incentivize certain behaviors within the network based upon the protocol. And again, when you just look at some of these protocols, right, many of them are based upon you like staking and earning inflation. But at a certain point, like, people are going to want to eventually spend that inflation, right? And then what happens to the protocol if you get 20% of the people start to sell, right? These are things that you have to start thinking about. So, just looking at the economics of it, it looks very Ponzi-like to me. But it can last another 2 or 3 years. It's just I've made a lot of money in it, right? So once you've made a lot of money in something and you believe it's a Ponzi, you sell 60% of it, 70% of it, 80% of it, and just let the rest ride. That's just smart investing and smart trading. But with that being said, guys, I want to keep this short. I don't want to go too long. We did an hour and 12 minutes. That's great. I wanted to just, wrap up the video by saying this. I've been telling you for years that the rest of the world is moving away from the US dollar. And we're watching it happen with so many different countries for a variety of different reasons, whether it's Russia with the sanctions, whether it's Saudi Arabia looking to sell its oil for the Chinese yuan. It's going to keep happening more and more and more because the West is unstable. Number one, because of our monetary policy and our fiscal policy is very, very poor. And we know that with $30 trillion of national debt, there's absolutely no way that we're going to be able to pay back our debt with tax receipts. So that means the next best tool is going to be inflation and devaluing the currency. And the world knows that, which is why now the Fed is stepping in and monetizing our debt by buying government bonds. And then the next thing is that as the government goes deeper and deeper into debt, they become hostile towards their own citizens and even their partners or potential allies, because now they want to start confiscating their wealth and things of that nature. And now people are looking at the dollar and treasuries and saying, you know what? This is not pristine collateral anymore. It's not a neutral asset because you can confiscate it and take it. So all of these things are starting to happen at important time in history. And this is why crypto is so important, because cryptocurrencies are an alternative to government-backed money, right? And removing centralized entities and third parties out of the equation. So I would encourage you to make sure that you're educating yourself on this technology and where we're going to go. Will it be really, really volatile? Absolutely, it will be. But throughout that volatility, eventually the cream will rise to the top, right? So with that being said, guys, please like the video, share the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, set it to all. I'm doing a $5,000 crypto giveaway. Make sure that you text the word YouTube to the number below so that you are on my text messaging list. I have a new Instagram page. I'm shutting down my old Instagram. Make sure that you are following my new Instagram page. That's where I'll be creating all of my content and kind of, engaging with you guys more personally. Also, we have My Tech Academy. We have a free 3-day trial where we cover all things crypto: how to buy, how to sell, how to store, how to build a portfolio, NFTs, DeFi. If it's crypto related, we cover it. On April 11th, I have a special presentation that I will be doing for lifetime members only, while we showing you alternative ways of converting your crypto to other assets or into fiat without having to go through a centralized exchange, which is going to be extremely valuable because, again, we're watching governments crack down. We're watching even Coinbase start to crack down in regards to how much crypto you can send and receive at any one time. So if you're not a lifetime member, you definitely need to go and grab a lifetime membership because it's definitely going to be great information. After that, guys, I'm out. Have a blessed and beautiful evening, and make sure that you stay safe during these dangerous times.